As I set out on my solo hike through the dense, verdant forest surrounding the Lake of the Woods in Minnesota, the afternoon sun cast a warm, inviting glow through the canopy above. The serene beauty of the landscape, with its whispering pines and the gentle lapping of the lake's water against the shore, offered a profound sense of isolation from the world's hustle and bustle. I had been hiking for a couple of hours, immersed in the tranquility of nature, when an inexplicable feeling of unease began to creep over me. The air grew still, and the usual chatter of wildlife fell silent, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. I shook off the feeling, attributing it to the isolation and my overactive imagination. Continuing along the rugged trail, the serenity was abruptly shattered by a bizarre noise emanating from deeper within the woods. It wasn't like anything I had heard before, a series of low, guttural tones followed by a high-pitched keening that resonated through the trees. My heart raced as I tried to rationalize the sound. Perhaps it was just a peculiar animal call, unfamiliar to me. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, I veered off the path, following the source of the noises. The dense foliage brushed against me as I pushed my way through, and the ground beneath my feet became increasingly uneven. After several minutes, I emerged into a small clearing and was struck by a sight so otherworldly it sent shivers down my spine. There, in the clearing, stood a creature like none I had ever seen or imagined. It was tall, easily over 7 feet, with long, slender arms that almost touched the ground. Its skin was a dark, glowing green, shimmering with an eerie luminescence that seemed to pulse rhythmically. But it was the creature's eyes that truly terrified me, large, almond-shaped, and glowing with the same sinister green light as its skin. Frozen in place, I watched as the creature moved with an unsettling, fluid grace, its long arms swaying gently. It seemed to be examining its surroundings, perhaps unaware of my presence. Then, abruptly, it stopped and turned its head, its glowing eyes locking onto mine. Panic surged through me as I realized I was not merely an observer. I was being observed, studied by this incomprehensible being. The forest, once a place of solitude and peace, had become a nightmarish landscape, with every shadow potentially concealing untold horrors. The creature began to move towards me, its steps silent but unnervingly fast. My body reacted before my mind could, turning and fleeing back through the underbrush, desperate to escape this alien pursuer. Branches whipped against my face, and roots threatened to trip me, but fear propelled me forward, driving me back toward the familiar trail. I dared not look back, fearing that the sight of the creature gaining on me would paralyze me with terror. My lungs burned, and my legs ached, but the primal instinct to survive overshadowed all else. The sounds of the creature's pursuit seemed to fill the forest, a relentless reminder that it was still behind me, perhaps closing in. After what felt like an eternity, I burst onto the trail and didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my car. With shaking hands, I fumbled with the keys, glancing frantically back toward the woods, half expecting to see the creature emerging from the trees. But there was nothing, only the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. As I drove away, my mind raced to make sense of what I had experienced. Had I truly encountered an extraterrestrial being in the remote wilderness of Minnesota? Or had fear and isolation conjured up an elaborate illusion? One thing was certain. The woods and the lake, once a refuge, now held an ominous presence, tainted by the memory of that terrifying encounter. In the days that followed, I debated whether to share my story. Would anyone believe me, or would they dismiss it as the fanciful tale of someone who had spent too much time alone in the wilderness? Yet the vividness of the encounter, the undeniable reality of my fear, compelled me to recount my experience, if only to validate it for myself. Whether the creature was a visitor from another world or a manifestation of my deepest fears, my hike at Lake of the Woods had irrevocably altered my perception of the natural world. No longer could I view it as a mere backdrop for human activity. It was a realm where the known and the unknown converged, where the mysteries of the universe could manifest in the most unexpected of places. And somewhere, in the shadowy depths of those woods, the truth about my encounter lies waiting, as enigmatic and elusive as the creature itself.